God bless you today and welcome to the Word Today. I'm Elder Robert Wilson. And once again, it is just so good to be able to enjoy another day that the Lord has made. He's made this day especially for us, and He's given us new mercy to go with it. So we just thank God for another opportunity to bring the Word of God today. We want to look at a kind of unusual word today, the word irreligious. Now we heard of religious a lot. It appears a lot, but this word irreligious is sometimes kept to the side. This word can come in different forms that you may be very familiar with. So we want to look at some places in the Bible where this word or words that are connected with irreligious may appear. So the first thing, this word irreligious means being indifferent or hostile to religion or having no religious belief. Now the world has become very, very hostile to religion. And when it comes to spiritual things, when we want to speak spiritual things, the world looks at this like this is not politically correct. So the world is very, very hostile against religion. And we see these same people, when it's time to get a reward, the first thing they will say is, I thank God, even though they are irreligious. Now, this problem with being irreligious is not just something that is happening outside of the church, but this has been a problem that came up in the church within the people of God. So when we look at Judges chapter 2, verses 10 and 11, it says, and also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And verse 11 says, and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam. Now their leader, Israel leader, Joshua, this great and faithful leader, he died of an old age and was buried. All the people of his generation soon died off. Now, the Bible tells us that they are said to be gathered to their father, which means that they were joined with the previous generation that had died off. Now, this next generation takes over. This next generation that comes after Joshua. Now, these children and their grandchildren of Joshua's generation was said to not know the Lord. Now, this simply means that they didn't acknowledge God. They didn't acknowledge God at all. They didn't acknowledge his authority. Now, they didn't experience it on firsthand, the mighty works that God did for Israel. So we see this type of action in other words, such as atheism, which is not believing in God, agnosticism, doubting the existence of God. Now, these are both seen as irreligious. Now, you're also irreligious if you do believe in God, but you don't, or you're not a part of a religious group, or you don't attend religious service. This is why the Bible tells us not to forsake to assemble ourselves together. So, not attending church is actually an act of being irreligious, not being concerned about the things of God. So let's look at a few more words that are linked to this word irreligious. And some of this stuff we could see happening in the world today. Okay, the first word is impious, meaning lacking piety or reverence of God. Now, we see this all the time. People have lost respect for God, lost respect for the house of God. They allow just about anything to happen in the church, and they call it a church service. But they lacking piety and lacking reverence or respect to God. Atheistical, unbelieving. These three words right here, rejecting any belief in God, rejecting any kind of belief in God. Ethnic, heathen, pagan. These three words right here represent not acknowledging the God of Christianity. The word laugh, no longer active or practicing. You have left religious reasoning. You have left even the practice of going to church. Non-observant. This is refusing to observe religious customs. Now, all these things causes us to have disrespect for the sanctuary, disrespect for the house of God. And these things will also cause you to be hindered from worship from evil spirits. So what position this puts us in today? See, no matter how many have gone before us, just like the generation of Joshua, no matter how many people have left and gone before us, we need to hold on to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and Jacob. Now, why should we do this? This is because they are the forerunners, or they are some forerunners of the gospel. They are the ones that help or held up the ways and the traditions of God. And that's very important. These same convictions that these men had and statutes should be kept so that we don't fall into irreligious or being irreligion. Now we have to continue to acknowledge God for who he is, and that is the God of heaven and earth. If we look at Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6, it gives instruction and it gives a promise. It says, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. So it gives a direction. In all your ways, acknowledge him, or it gives that instruction. And then it gives a promise that he will direct your path. To desire to acknowledge the Lord and closely follow his leading is very important. It's a wonderful thing. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. So acknowledging God starts with trusting him and then not trusting in your own understanding. To acknowledge God in all your ways is to know him. It is to recognize that God is the one who works in our lives in power. He works in our lives in wisdom, in goodness, and in justice. He is worthy of following. So if we continue to acknowledge God, we will avoid being like the generation that came after Joshua, that knew not God and didn't know the works of God. They fell into irreligion. They were irreligious, but we are trying to be free from irreligious.